Hola, buenos días, bienvenidos a mi clase de español de hoy. Otra vez, once again. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Yo estoy muy bien. ¿Y tú? ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? So, today, guys, we're going to talk about strategies for learning a bit. There will be a little bit of new stuff as well. Uh, First of all, I just want to focus on this. I call them word mats, and basically, it's the idea being that you've got a lot of language just on one place on one sheet. Whether you choose to print this off on A4 paper or A5 paper, A5 is probably big enough, but it doesn't really matter, does it? So I want to give you a whirlwind tour of what's on here so that you're clear on the different parts of this particular document. So um, in the top corner here, we've got some really lovely expressions of that you might want to use to introduce your opinion. So, I believe that, I think that, in my view, it seems to me. So, creo que, pienso que, a mi modo de ver, me parece que, and this is really nice as well. I have been told that, which is a great thing to use. And it's tricky, this one. It's me han dicho que, me han dicho que. Um, this is quite nice because actually, when you think about it, if you're talking about yourself, often might sound a little bit kind of arrogant, arrogante, or big-headed to say things like, "Oh, I believe that I am a funny and good-looking person." So, if you wanted to kind of soften the edges of that a little bit, you could say, "I have. Oh, I've been told that I'm a charming and good-looking person. Me han dicho que soy una persona." Um, Muy simpático y guapo, for example. So me han dicho que is lovely to use, but it's quite tricky. Um, the others are all what I would call absolutely core phrases that you need right the way through your GCSE when you want to give an opinion of any kind. Next, down here, right hand column in yellow, all a very wide range of adjectives of describing character and personality. I'm not going to go through them all, but you've got a big range to choose from. Um, Nice ones like weird, raro, like rare, isn't it? Weird, tonto, stupid, lindo is nice. It means sweet. She's a really sweet person, or that sort of thing. Adorable, cute. Tranquilo, hablador, chatty. Um, Very much linked with these adjectives, or in fact very much linked with any adjective, are these things here in this box, which are called intensifiers, because they tell you the intensity, if you like, of the adjective. So if I say bossy, are we very bossy? Muy mandon. Are we not very bossy? No muy mandon. Are we quite bossy? Bastante mandon. A bit bossy, un poco mandon. Too bossy, demasiado mandon, or so bossy, tan mandon. So these are very much words that you can always use whenever you're using an adjective. So they're super useful. Next up, um, yeah, this lot down here are very core because this is all your amming and ising type expressions. At the simplest level, it's things like I am, soy, and no soy, I am not. If you wanted to use the structure, I am a whatever the adjective is, person. So here I've given you the example of I am a clever person. You say soy una persona lista for clever. If you want to say I am a loyal person, here it is over here on the yellow column, leal, it will be soy una persona leal, for example. So slightly different way of saying, rather than just saying I am, I can be. Okay, so it's worth focusing on the word puedo, because puedo is how you say I can in every sense, puedo. And ser is to be or be. So puedo ser, I can be. Here we've got the he, she, is forms. So es is, and it can mean he is or she is, depending on the context. No es, he or she isn't. Again, if you wanted to use persona in the same way we've used it here and say he or she is an annoying person, it's not soy now, but es una persona molesta. The only complication here is to remember that if you're using persona to describe somebody, whether it's yourself or somebody else, it doesn't matter whether the person that's being described is masculine or feminine. The word for person is feminine in Spanish. Therefore, even if I wanted to say I am a clever person, for example, I still will use lista and not listo, because the lista is referring to the word person, which is feminine. As opposed to me saying I am clever, just I am clever, which would be soy listo, because here it's more direct. I'm saying I am clearly a man. I am clever, listo. The last one is puede ser. So we've got puedo ser, I can be. Puede with an E now, ser is he or she can be. What else have we got? Blue box down here. This is all your adjectives of appearance. Tall, short, slim, skinny or weedy, good looking, ugly, young, and so on. Oranges over here are connecting and extending words. Again, I don't really probably need to go through it all, but maybe just to point out that pero and aunque, but and although, for example, are completely interchangeable. So where you use but in a sentence, you could equally use although and not change the meaning at all. So a very quick example would be he is a very clever person, but he can be quite shy. So the but could be, you could change to although and it wouldn't have any impact on the meaning at all. He's a very clever person, although he can be a bit shy. No difference to using but. So pero and aunque are completely interchangeable. Porque, because, is a very important one. We've got frequency expressions here, which are things that you need to know generally in Spanish. And I've given you a small selection, but an important selection. Never, sometimes, often, always, nunca, a veces, a menudo, siempre. Lastly are these two here. This pink box is giving you some really nice fuller phrases that you can use and might well want to use. So how do I say I get on well with somebody in Spanish? It's me llevo bien con. How do I say we get on well, as in my mum and me? It's nos llevamos bien. How do I say he or she makes me laugh? Me hace reír. And finally, he or she gets on my nerves. Me pone de los nervios. So they're really nice expressions which are going to get you lots of marks in an exam if you can remember to say them and use them. Lastly on this sheet are the section down here in the left-hand bottom corner, which is different family members. How you say my family, my stepsister, my mum, my dad, my best friend, and so on. So it's a very useful little document and has most of the things that you would want to know in order to create a good sentence or two or paragraph or two about self and family. So strategies for learning. So if we look, I like this use of the first letter of the Spanish that you need as a prompt and a reminder as to how you say things. So if, for example, we would say, in addition, I am quite funny, but sometimes I can be a bit bossy. I'm slim but not very tall. Here I'm giving you the first letters of the Spanish words that you would need to say this. And if you access this document, which I'm kind of hoping you've got now with you, or you've printed it off, in fact, it might be easier to just go Oh no, we can't do it that way. We will do it this way. So you'll need this document. Oops, giving you the answers there. You'll need this document in front of you ideally, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time to see if you can work out how you use the first letters to say this in Spanish. Let's do the very first bit together so you understand how this works. So if we were to look at, in addition, I am quite funny, which corresponds to the letter A and SBG here, how's that going to work? Well, if you remember now, we're looking at in addition, I am quite funny. In addition, I am quite funny. And we go back to our sheet. In addition is además. I am quite funny. Soy is I am. Quite is an intensifier from this box here, and it is bastante. So far we've got además, soy, bastante, and funny is here, gracioso. And be careful, there's a difference between funny and fun, isn't there, in English as well? And funny, as in comical, is gracioso. Fun is divertido. So the whole thing is, además, in addition, soy, I am, quite, bastante, gracioso, funny. Okay, so además, soy, bastante gracioso. And that fits, doesn't it? Look, además, there's an A there. Soy es bastante gracioso. So put me on pause, get this sheet in front of you, and at this stage I will tell you that if you still haven't kind of downloaded this sheet or printed it off, I will put a link to it again at the bottom of this video. Okay. Pause me now, have a go, come back when you're ready. Okay, so I've assumed you've spent a bit of time on that. Let's have a look at the answer. What you should have written is, además, soy bastante gracioso. In addition, I am quite funny. Pero a veces, but a veces, sometimes, puedo ser, I can be, puedo ser, un poco mandón, a bit bossy. Soy, I am, delgado, slim, pero, but, no soy, I am not, muy alto, very tall. So that corresponds in terms of first letters with what we've got up here, and this is the strategy that I'd like you to adopt, or one of the strategies I'd like you to adopt to learn some of these Spanish paragraphs and responses. Okay. So, at the bottom of this video, I'm going to give you a link to a PowerPoint as well, which I've called a talk prompt, sort of PowerPoint, talk prompt. And it looks like this. You will have this PowerPoint slide. You're not going to have all of this PowerPoint because I don't want to confuse you or give you too much information. And this is how you're going to learn to say, I think that I'm a very good looking and nice person. In addition, I'm quite funny, but sometimes I can be a bit bossy. I'm slim, but not very tall. And we haven't looked at this yet, but a little bit about how you talk about hair and eyes. I have blonde, straight hair, and I have green eyes. We will be looking at that very soon. So in fact, probably in the next episode, or certainly the following episode, we will do a section on hair and eyes. And that's useful because that contains a lot of colour adjectives, obviously, because when we're talking about hair and eyes, we tend to talk about colour. So it will be a review of colour. And other useful words like long, for example, when we're talking about hair, short, largo, corto, and so on. So there's some very good language involved in talking about hair and eyes. So it says here, these are the first letters of the corresponding Spanish below. So we'll have a look at that in a second. I've told you that you can either just print this slide if you've got a printer at home, or use it as it is on screen. The aim is to be able to cover the Spanish and translate from the English using the first letters as a prompt. So in the end, what I want you to be able to do is look at this English, and you might even get to the stage quite quickly where you don't need these first letters, but using the first letter as a guide here, or first letter as a guide, can I give you the Spanish equivalent of these phrases? So, excuse me, use the up-down arrows on the keyboard to cover and reveal. There's probably other ways of doing that. You can use the mouse wheel as well if you've got a mouse. Not sure how many ways of doing this there are, but there's plenty. So you can make this blue blob here disappear to reveal the Spanish and check your answers like that, basically. So the way it would work is you're sat looking at this and you're thinking, I think that, oh, how do I say that in Spanish? CQ are the letters I need for the two words. And if we reveal it, it's creo que. I am a very good looking and nice person. SUPMGYS. So what's that going to be? You try and remember, and then you reveal and check, soy una persona muy guapa y simpática. Okay, and you can basically make the blob change by using the arrows or the mouse wheel or however else you want to do it to get to the point where you can reel this off in Spanish really quickly. There's two parts to, if you like, the resources on this. On the one hand, there's this type of slide where you have this set up with the English, the initials of the letters you need, and below it the Spanish to check. And the other part of this is an audio that will go with it, which is also linked to underneath the video. So what you're looking for is this PowerPoint slide. I mean, there's a couple of other slides on there as well, but this is your main practice slide, and a 1 or 1.5 minute audio that goes with this. How does the audio help you? Well, what you will hear me saying on the audio, you get yourself plugged in with some earplugs, and you're going to hear me say, I think that, in English. I will pause, and then I will say the Spanish. So you'll hear, I think that, pause, creo que. So you can follow and hear the Spanish equivalent as an extra aid. And if you think about it, that's going to make your pronunciation brilliant. Then you'll hear me say, I'm a very good looking and nice person. Pause. While you have a think. Soy una persona muy guapa y simpática. So you'll hear me say that. And I will go through this, giving you the English, pausing on the audio, and then giving you the Spanish. It's only a very short audio. And how exactly you use it is entirely up to you. You might want to blank this off while you listen to the audio and just read this lot. Or you might want to go through having the whole thing and looking at the Spanish as well and listening to how the Spanish is pronounced. You work with it however you want and whatever suits you. So, at the end of this video, look at the links below the video, and you're looking to get an audio file and this PowerPoint file, which is marked talk prompt. Okay, so just a bit of new learning now. Last episode, I think it was episode 9, we looked at más and menos, more, less, más, menos. So the reason these are super useful words is because you can, well, there's many reasons why they're useful. We use these words a lot generally in language, but I want to show you how you form something called a comparative in Spanish, and that's just a posh way of saying things like faster than, slower than, cleverer than, more noisy than. It's when you're comparing, comparing things using adjectives. So what do I mean by that? If I wanted to say more slim than, or we would say slimmer than, wouldn't we? But that doesn't kind of exist in Spanish. You have to say more, whatever the adjective is, than. So more slim than will be más delgado que. It's that simple. Más delgado que, more slim than. If I want to say less slim than, menos delgado que. So that's the structure. You've got an adjective in the middle, and then you've got más que and menos que. By the way, if you want to say more or less in Spanish, it's exactly the same as in English. It's más o menos. Más o menos. So if I wanted to say yesterday I ran 10 kilometers more or less, it will be 10 kilómetros más o menos, approximately. So that's the structure. We're already familiar with most of these adjectives. Mandón, bossy, gracioso, funny. The rest we certainly know. So let me help you to try and actually use this language. So soy and es, I am, soy. Es is how you say he is or she is. It's the same, es. So if, for example, I want to say I am shorter than my father, for example. I am shorter than my father. My father is mi padre. Okay? It's going to be, well, you tell me. You have a look at this. Pause if you need to. How are you going to say I am shorter than my father? Bearing in mind that the Spanish will not say shorter. They have to say more short than. Okay? How do you think you might say that? So it's going to be soy, I am, más bajo, more short, más bajo que, up here, than mi padre, my father. Soy más bajo que mi padre. Okay, so that's the idea of this. I've given you some phrases, or little people, if you like, that we can play with while we're doing this. So we've got Rafa, which is a name in Spanish, a boy name, short for Rafael. And I've given you Isabel, a girl name, which actually gets shortened just to Isa very often, ISA. I've got a very good friend in Spain called Isa, Isabel. So let's try a few of these and you'll really get the hang of it, I think, quite quickly. So how would I say, I am fatter than Isabel. I am fatter than Isabel. Or the Spanish would say, I am more fat than Isabel. Again, pause if you want to. So it's going to be, soy más gordo que Isabel. Soy más gordo que Isabel. I am more fat gordo que than Isabel. How would we say, I am more good looking than my brother. I'm more good looking than my brother. Pause again if you want. So that's going to be, soy más guapo, good looking. Soy más guapo que mi hermano. Okay, my brother. Next, I am meaner than my mother. So again, it's going to be, soy más antipático que mi madre. Soy más antipático que mi madre. I am meaner or more mean than my mother. One last one along this I am sort of line. I am taller than Rafa. I am taller than Rafa. in fact, let's do this. Yes, I am taller than Rafa. There's actually two ways to say this, and for those of you that are getting the hang of this really well, you could say the same thing or the same meaning by using either más or menos. So I don't know whether you'll understand what I mean by that, but there's two ways of essentially saying I think I said I am less tall. Yes, I'm less tall than Rafa. Let's go for that. I am less tall than Rafa. How can you say that? And actually there are two ways of conveying that idea. So it will be soy menos alto que Rafa. Soy, I am, menos, less, tall, alto, que, than Rafa, que Rafa. But you could also say, couldn't you? And it would mean the same thing. I am shorter than Rafa. That has the same meaning as I am less tall than Rafa. So you could equally say soy más. Getting confused myself here. Yes, soy más bajo que Rafa. Exactly the same meaning, isn't it? I am shorter, more short than Rafa. Exactly the same as saying as I'm less tall. Okay, right. Moving on to using s now. This is the word for is. He is or she is. How would we say? My grandfather is uglier than my father. My grandfather is uglier than my father. It's not a very nice thing to say, is it? So it will be mi abuelo es más feo que mi padre. My grandfather is uglier than my father, or more ugly is how you have to say it. So again, mi abuelo, my grandfather, is más feo, more ugly, que, than mi padre, my father. Okay, next, how would you say my mum is kinder or nicer than my sister? My mum is kinder than my sister, or nicer than my sister. So that's going to be mi madre es más simpática, with an A on the end, because we're talking about my mum, so you need the feminine form of the adjective with the A, not the O. So mi madre es más simpática que mi abuela, than my grandmother. So mi madre, my mum, is más simpática, more nice, que mi abuela, than my grandmother. One last one then. How are you going to say Isabel is... Okay, Isabel is bossier than me. Isabel is bossier than me. So it would be Isabel es más mandona que yo. So yo often means I, but it can also mean in some contexts me as well. So it will be Isabel es más mandona, because Isabel's a girl, so it's the feminine form, mandona, not mandon. Es más mandona que yo. So that's an introduction to comparatives and how they work. Comparative sounds is a grammatical term. It sounds very grand, but it just means when we're comparing two or more things. So you can, by the way, negatify soy and s really easily to say I am not, no soy, or he or she isn't, no s. No soy, no s. Okay, one last bit before we finish, because we're at nearly half an hour. So let's have a look at how we might use this to talk about the weather today and the weather yesterday, so present and past. If I introduce you to the words caloroso and frío, we might remember, we did look at some weather expressions, and you might remember hace calor, hace frío. Hace means it makes, and that's the phrase, or the verbs rather, that the Spanish use when they talk about weather. We'd say it is hot. The Spanish, like the French, say it makes hot. So it makes hot is hace calor. It makes cold, hace frío. We would say it is hot or it is cold. So, but these are the calor and frío are nouns. Now what we want is adjectives. So the adjective for warm is hot, is caloroso, and frío is exactly the same. The noun and the adjective are the same, frío. So if I wanted to say today is warmer than yesterday, and today is hoy, and yesterday is ayer, caloroso and frío are our words for warm and cold. How are we going to say today is warmer than yesterday? Okay, have you had a little think? So if you thought this, or wrote it down, or said this, you would be correct. Hoy es más caluroso que ayer. Hoy, today, es más caluroso, more warm, que ayer, than yesterday. Okay, so I think at this stage I'm going to wrap today's lesson up, guys. Don't forget to look at the links below the video. Click on them, it will take you straight to where you need to be. Things like the audio files, if you're using a phone to access this, by clicking on the link, I think you just get the audio straight on your phone, which is great. Otherwise, you'll have to sort of transfer it on there somehow. And that's it. So the task, if you like, from this episode is to use this learning strategies that we've looked at, this sheet with the audio, to see if you can really speed up your fluency and lack of hesitation in the language. That's it. Hasta luego. Hasta la próxima vez. Until the next time. Adios.